1 John chapter number 3, verse number 16. Hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us. We ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoso hath this world's goods, and seeth his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwelleth the love of God in him? My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. The word love is used in a lot of different ways in our society. It's used in conjunction with things that are extremely sacred and also with things that have almost no meaning at all. In one sentence, a man may say, I love God, and then in the next sentence say, I love chocolate cake. One is very, very sacred, and one really has no meaning. He may use the words to describe great depth of feeling and also to describe things that have almost no depth of feeling at all. He may say, I love my wife and my family, and I love the smell of spring. Now, there's no real harm in the generic use of the word love, but we always must be conscious of how we're using that word and what we truly mean by the word when we use it, using that word love. Tonight we're celebrating Valentine's Day, which is a celebration of love. It's not the trite or the no depth of feeling type love, the use of the word. Like tonight we're not celebrating Valentine's Day, I love chocolate cake, or I love the smell of spring. Valentine's Day is a celebration of love in its deepest and truest form, but only in really specific relationships. If you remember when you were a kid and you had to have Valentines to take to school, you would sort through, you got your little packet of Valentines, you got your box full, and so you would sort through. Do you remember doing that as a kid? Because you would sort through the absolutely best Valentine to give to that cute girl. That was a lot of work to make sure you had the best Valentine to give to that cute girl in the class. You used almost the same amount of care in all the other girls because you did not want them to get any wrong ideas about this thing. And then you gave them to your friends, the guy friends as well, but you had to make sure there were no mushy cards given to your guy friends because that just was weird. That's how you celebrated Valentine's as a kid. But that's not even a thought today here for us. I'm looking at a room full of men that I truly love in the Lord. But none of you got me Valentine cards, and I'm not going to get you one. That's just not what we do. Because Valentine's Day is not a celebration of that kind of love. Valentine's Day focuses more on the romantic, close family type of love. Now in this service, the next two sessions will focus on that type of love in both marriage and in family. But right now, let's focus very quickly on love as a generic concept, not just in the Valentine's Day scenario. Now, I'm not trying to define love tonight or explain it. I think we'd be far better off if we could just recognize it in ourselves, true love, and when we see it, if we could just recognize it in ourselves and others. So look at verse number 16. Hereby perceive we the love of God. Because he laid down his life for us, we ought to also to lay down our lives for the brethren. Contemplate love in the true meaning from this verse. It says here, we can understand, we perceive, we can understand, we can comprehend, we can recognize God's love, that it's true and actual love because he laid down his life for us. Now, we recognize what all that involved, the fact that he loved us, and we can see it in the fact that he laid down his life for us, and we can picture what that means. But look at the last phrase. We ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. What does that mean? We know what it meant for Christ. We know that we can perceive his love because that's what he did. He laid down his life. We ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. Now, if we read this as actually meaning laying down our lives, dying, then we're in the clear. Because how often do you get a chance to do that? I mean, once in a great while, somebody's confronted with a life and death situation. I mean, if you're in the military and you're in a combat zone and a hand grenade comes flying in, and a man may say, "Oh, my friends," and he jumps on the hand grenade and gives his life to save his buddies. But how often does that happen? When was the last time you had a chance to do that? So we read this verse and say, well, I would lay down my life, but I just never got a chance, and so it never came up, and so I'm clear. I'm off the hook. But is that what is really meant here? If we really think about what does it mean to lay down our lives for the brethren, I think laying down our lives is much less complicated than that, and we have the opportunity to do it dozens of times every day. I think if we had to define laying down our lives, it would be this: the giving of oneself for the help or needs of another without the thought of personal benefit or consequences. Let me run that by you again. It is the giving of oneself for the help or needs of another without the thought of personal benefit or consequences. Think about that one more time. It's the giving of oneself for the help or the needs of another without the thought of personal benefit or consequence. How am I going to benefit from this? Or what's this going to cost me? We don't think in those terms. This person has need, this person needs help, and I'm going to do it. It doesn't matter what it costs. It doesn't matter if I get any benefit from it. It is literally the laying down of our own rights and our dreams and our resources for the benefit of another. This is the true essence of love. It is the pattern that Christ set. Now, plug that thought process into all the areas of love in your life. Think of the immediate effect that would take place if God's people simply lived the love that Christ laid out. What difference would be seen in our marriages if both parties laid down their lives moment by moment for each other? What change would take place in our homes if selfless love was the standard? What would this church look like if we all had that mindset of laying down our lives for one another? What would our outreach look like if that was our motivating force? Now, the reality is we cannot make that happen with anyone in our marriages or in our homes or in our churches. We cannot make anyone live and demonstrate selfless love. We cannot do that. We do, however, have absolute control over our own love. And whether anyone else in your life does it or not, brethren, we ought to lay down our lives for the people around us. We ought to moment by moment give ourselves for the help and the need of others without the thought of personal benefit or consequences. This is life-changing love.